right. This is April 23rd, 1999. This is being recorded at 904 Estate Street. I am speaking with Alice Chapman, and could you please state your name?
My name is Alice Chapman.
Okay. Do I have your permission to interview you?
Surely.
Okay. Do I have your permission to submit this interview to Marion High School?
Yes.
Do I have your permission to submit this interview to the Marion Public Library?
Yes.
Okay, and then at this point we will begin the questions. Okay, Alice Chapman, could you please tell me about your life?
Well, it's been a long one. I'm 78 years old as of last week, so it's been a long life, and basically a good one, I think, anyway. I was born in New York City, so my move much later than that to Marion, Indiana, was kind of a shocker, moving from the big city to a little one. But I've liked it. I've lived here for a long, long time now, from the late 40s, in fact, so that's a long time. And where shall I begin? I had a very ordinary life. Went to grade school like we all do through 8 years of that, and then on to a high school that was about 6,000 girls, and all girls, no fellows. Big, big loss. From there, I wanted to go on to college, and I chose the University of Vermont in beautiful, beautiful Burlington, Vermont. And I spent 4 very fine, very educational, very pleasant years there. My major was dietetics, and that took all of the 4 years in school. Most of the students in my class, with one exception, were all female. And not all of us went on to be dietitians at all. That was rather different, but a lot of them wanted to go into teaching, which they did too. When I graduated in 1942, that's really showing how old I am now, graduated, and at the time, people who wanted to be dietitians needed to take an internship, usually consisting of a full year. However, since this was wartime, they had cut that internship to a 9-month period. I was very fortunate in getting an internship. They were kind of hard to come by at the time, and mine was in northern New Jersey. There was Beth Israel Hospital, which was a large general hospital in Newark, New Jersey, Hackensack General, which was a small hospital in, obviously, Hackensack. I need to tell you, I don't know why, while at Hackensack, my roommate, Ramona, insisted that we go and watch a birth, which we did do. The woman who was giving birth, it was her 3rd child, and as I understood, a very easy delivery. However, that was enough for me. I swore I would never have children. However, I have 3. So, you've changed your mind. The 3rd institution of my internship was at a place called Overbrook, which was a large mental asylum also in New Jersey. And it was kind of scary in a way. I hadn't been used to patients of this type, and all the way to get from one building to another was an underground passage. So we, as girls, never wanted to go through these underground passages alone, but we usually did. At the end of this 9-month period, I was hired by Beth Israel Hospital in Newark, and had a very fine learning period at that point, and learning to get along with all kinds of patients, all kinds of necessary diets, and very good companions. There were 8 or 9 of us, I don't quite remember, girls in this internship, really from all over the country. My favorite was a girl from North Dakota, actually, and how she got from North Dakota to northern New Jersey, I don't know, but she did.
Okay, we're going to stop the tape at this time.
Yep. My mentor of the program was a Sophia Morris. She was a big, older lady who needed to lose some weight, just as I do now, but anyway. And the chief of the cooking end of it was called Sammy, and I don't remember Sammy's last name, but he was a little feller, and very good. He had some sort of an accent, I don't know what it was, but the department functioned very nicely. At the end of the 9-month period, I was hired on as the cafeteria manager at Beth Israel, and I really didn't want to especially do that. I wanted to get into the service. We were in the World War II by now. Now, I'd like to backtrack a little bit here, if I may.
We're going to stop the tape again.
Please. I had really wanted very badly to go into the service at that point. In my senior year of college, we had sorority sisters from McGill University in Montreal come down for a very pleasant weekend. I don't remember what the big occasion was, but they were there. And this was the weekend of December 6th and 7th of 1941. Probably anyone listening will remember what December 7th, 1941 was. That was the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Well, at the end of the day, late afternoon, we had to put the gals from Montreal back on their train to get it home. And we felt very, very close by then, because here the United States was going to be in the war, and Canada already was. So they went back.
Stopping the tape.
As I had already mentioned, I wanted very badly to get into the service. My mother and father didn't think that was too hot an idea, but I did it anyway. And just 3 weeks from the time I applied, I was in. And now I was Second Lieutenant Alice Reichman. How about that? My first station then was at Halloran General Hospital on Staten Island, and one gets to Staten Island on a ferry boat from New York City. And the ride back and forth was a lot of fun. At Halloran, there were several of us who were dietitians, and my first assignment there was a necessary one, but to me it was rather boring. At the time, this now is 1942, penicillin was a very experimental drug, and they wanted to find out which nutrient components were most beneficial for people who were on penicillin. So what I did all day long, well, no, that's not true, just for the noon meal, which was the big meal, was weigh the food that was going into the patient, and then when it came back, we had to weigh all the leftovers, thus seeing how much of whatever they had consumed, and looking up all these charts on what nutrients were in them, and getting all the figures on that. As I said, it was kind of a boring job, but I guess necessary. We did at the end of the experiment decide that diet rather high in protein, that would be your meats, cheeses, eggs, milk, etc., would help the benefits of the penicillin, which I found rather interesting. So we spent some time in Halloran. I had a roommate named Doris, and Doris and I, these many, many years later, still correspond. She lives down in Memphis now, and I'm here in good old Marion. Anyway, she's the only one that I still keep in touch with of all the people I had known there. After that, I became part of the 90th General Hospital, still on Staten Island at that point. But then, after a bit, we moved. We went down to Fort Dix in New Jersey, and I told my dad that I would like to volunteer for overseas duty. And as any good father should, he objected strenuously. He wanted me back in the States where I belonged. But anyway, Fort Dix was kind of quite a place. First, we were assigned to a cooks and bakers school. Remember, I am a dietitian now. And that was fun more than anything else. I don't think I learned much, but the class was full of nice-looking young men, so I enjoyed it. After all, I'm 21 years old. Why not? That was over finally, but we had some nasty stuff to do down at Fort Dix, too. One was a gas mask drill, where we had to put a gas mask over our face and just carry on with that on. And the second thing was an infiltration drill, where we had to crawl on hands and knees, and they supposedly were shooting over our heads. I don't imagine it was live ammunition, but I don't know. We weren't about to take a chance, I assure you. So that's what we did there. And after a while, we found that our 90th General Hospital was bound for overseas. And a lot of us were pleased, a lot of us were displeased with that thought. But we got on a train and loaded up to the New York Port of Authority. And having gotten there, I don't recall how long the trip from Trenton, New Jersey was up there. Anyway, we got there just to find out that our ship had been sabotaged. It wasn't going anywhere. Now, what the result of the sabotage was, I really can't say. I do remember so distinctly, though, we got back on the train, turned around, and went back to Trenton, New Jersey. We could not use that ship. Well, not too much after that, we went up to New York Harbor again, and this time we were all loaded aboard the Queen Elizabeth II, which had just been commissioned out in the east somewhere, I think in China, but I wouldn't swear to that either. So off we go. Now the ship must have been very beautiful, except it was all padded, all the walls, the stairways, and everything. It is brand new and very luxurious. So you know the type of padding that they use if you're moving and all your furniture is covered in the moving van. That's the kind of padding that was on the walls. But finally, we did get moving, and it was New Year's Eve of all things, 1943. We pulled out of New York Harbor. None of us were too thrilled about that part, but away we went. Nothing much happened on board ship. There were 6 of us, I believe, in a stateroom that was meant for 2, so we were rather crowded, as you can imagine. But we were companionable. We took turns doing this, that, and the other thing. And when my turn came to have a shower, which was not as often as we would like, we found that the water in the shower was salt water. Now, oh golly, you came out feeling just as sticky as when you first got in. So that was the only shower I had in all the days that we took going overseas. Didn't want to be more easier to wash. We landed eventually going up the Firth of Clyde in Scotland. We got off there, and we were told we were going down to a place called Beeston Castle. Castle? Oh, all the girls got excited. Very foolishly, we brought evening clothes with us, which was utterly ridiculous what we had. So, Beeston Castle was on the outskirts of Chester, England, and this was January and February of 1944 by now. Well, we landed in a combat engineers camp, and we lived in metal distant huts with one pot-bellied stove for heat, which was very, very insufficient. However, some of the enlisted men did bring us wood and some coal for the stove, so that did help. They were very nice to us. It was kind of interesting. I think from all the time I was in service, you never ever walked anywhere. You always marched. Well, at this combat engineers camp, January, February 44, oh, it was so cold. But at 6 o'clock in the morning, we would hear reveille all the time. Out we would go. And I believe that field must have been the size of a football field. And round and round and round we would march to the tune of the Colonel Bogey March, which you've probably never heard of, but and I'm no singer, something like this. Da 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 dum 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 dee 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 dum dum dum. And round we would go. And I don't know how long we marched. It seemed like forever and ever, but it wasn't that long, I'm sure. Chester itself was an interesting city. We did find out that Beeston Castle, which we'd expected to see, was on the western slopes, but it was in ruins, so we never did see it. I was told it was a wonderful example of medieval architecture at one time. I didn't see it. Chester is a walled city. There's a wall completely around it, about 2 miles around, as I understand it, and had been built by the Romans before the 5th century. So, as an example of medieval architecture, we were disappointed not to see it standing up, but we didn't. The population of Chester, as I understand it, was about 115,000.
Stopping the tape.
I understand that Liverpool has taken over much of Chester's industry and trade now. Well, in the early spring of 1944, we trained to a place called Great Malvern. Great Malvern's in the Midlands of England, and just very, very beautiful. We had few patients at this time because we were not really engaged in the war at this point. So a lot of the girls in the outfit bought bicycles, as I did too. English bikes are wonderful. And we had a lovely time just riding our bicycles around that spring. The buildings of the hospital were very nice. They were quite modern. The area was just beautiful, full of low hills, mineral springs, and apple orchards, which were in bloom. I understand that now the Malverns are an educational and a cultural center with a population of over 87,000. Both Elizabeth Barrett Browning and John Masefield had lived there as children.
Stopping the tape.
Great Malvern, we were sent up to Llandudno in Wales. Llandudno, as you might surmise, is spelled with two L's to begin with. Llandudno. This was May of 1944, and Llandudno in Wales is on the Irish Sea, and it's a summer resort. Or it was, I don't know what it's like now. It had a beach, boardwalk, swimming pools, and so forth. And it was surrounded by greater and lesser forms, O-R-M-E-S, and I'm not sure if forms were supposed to be low mountains or high hills, but anyway, that's what they were like. That's probably a Welsh name for them, so I don't really know. But we enjoyed being there. We had, once again, a lot of leisure time, and I do have a picture of myself in uniform standing next to the statue of Alice in Wonderland, which was there on the shoreline. After a while, we hated to even think about leaving Llandudno. We were having fun. This doesn't sound like the Army, does it? It gets more so later. I was sent on detached service to a field hospital in southern England, and one morning we were wakened by an awful sound outside. It sounded like a bunch of trains getting together. What we were hearing, though, was the sound of planes rendezvousing overhead. It is D-Day, and they are rendezvousing and getting ready to go across the English Channel to France. That is a noise or sound I will never ever forget. Well, from this place in southern England, I rejoined my outfit, and we were finally off to France on a very crowded ship. And just to cross the English Channel, we were on that ship for a day and a half. I can't imagine why now. We landed in France. This is about 22 days after D-Day by now, or 25. I'm not really sure, right in that time period anyway. We were stationed in a field in Normandy, and we had a very large tent in which there were 18 of us, ladies, women, assigned. And we were told by the chief nurse, who was over the dietitians, the Red Cross girls, the nurses, etc., that we were not to leave that field without transportation and an escort. Well, it get pretty old hat after a while. There's nowhere to go and not much to do. They showed old movies at night, and that was about the entertainment, except that the fellows with cheerleaders among the women would play softball every afternoon. That's about all we did. So, my two friends, special friends, Kitty and Cynthia, and I, we sneaked out the hedges, got out on the road, and wanted to hitchhike. Well, along came a jeep with a driver and a nice, tall, handsome captain sitting in it. This is how I meet my husband, as you find out. Anyway, Bob Chapman was my husband, and some older people will remember Bob from being on the 1926 Marion basketball team, along with a name even more famous, Stretch Murphy. He was 6'5", I think, Stretch was, and Bob was a mere 6'2". So anyway, we kind of giggled, the three girls, Cynthia, Kitty, and myself, at the fact that Bob took us all around that end of Normandy all the time. And we'd get back in our own quarters, and we'd kind of giggle and say, oh, that man's got to settle on one of us sometime. And I was the lucky one. He settled on me. I was happy about that. Well, we're still not much involved with anything and waiting for permanent stations at that point. So Bob and I really got very, very well acquainted. We had the afternoons, we'd go sit under a tree and just talk, or we'd go out to the edge of the ocean, or it really wasn't the ocean, it was the channel, and sit on a rock and talk some more. They were sand dunes then. I met through Bob, a man, we never knew his name, we just called him Papa. He was an older gentleman and lived in a rather decent house that had tobacco hanging from the eaves all over to dry. But we'd go there most evenings, and Papa would feed us some of his cider, and we'd sit there and talk some more. Papa did not have a wife at that point. He did have one daughter, a grown daughter, who was there with us. Well, he and I, Bob and I, got to know each other quite well, and he showed me one day his home. His home was the fuselage of a German plane that had been shot down, and that's where he lived. His idea, Bob's idea of his treat, was to make potato soup. It was really awful potato soup, It consisted of nothing but potatoes and onions and some milk. I'm not sure where they got that milk. We never had it except powdered milk anyway. But no seasonings. If you make potato soup, you usually want a little fat in it. Bacon fries or whatever. Oh,
We're stopping the tape.
stop.
Okay.
Okay. That's how I met Bob, anyhow, by getting picked up and taken all around the other girls. His home, that plane's fuselage of the Germans, was kind of comfortable, really. So, we got to know each other better and better. Of course, you couldn't go to the store and buy a box of chocolates for your girlfriend at that point, or roses or whatever, the usual courting. So we call courting, that's an old-fashioned word, isn't it? But he did pick a canteen cup, and that holds, I believe, about a pint. He picked that full of blueberries, and that was his gift to me. And I ate it all, every single last one. And oh boy, that was bad, very bad on the intestines. We decided after long enough, we'd known each other, a month and a half or so, that we wanted to be engaged, and so we did consider ourselves.
Stopping the tape.
After we'd been there at this Normandy place for quite a while, we got our orders. My outfit, the 90th General Hospital, was off to a place called Bar-le-Duc. That's B-A-R, small L-E, capital D-U-C, Bar-le-Duc, which was about as close to the German front lines as you could get at that point. In fact, we found out after a few days that the hospital we were moving into had just been vacated by Germans 3 days before. They had been there since they had pushed the inmates of this institution out. This was an insane asylum, actually, for the French. It was very nice modern buildings, but it was the filthiest place you'd ever want to see. So everyone, from the colonel of our outfit, who was the chief, on down to the lowliest buck private, spent all our time cleaning and scrubbing and cleaning. Dear, it was awful. And the first night we had been there, Kitty and I were roommates in this nice house. It had been a very lovely home, but the beds were crawling. And so at the time, DDT was the thing that you used as an insecticide. I believe it's been outlawed now in 1999, but then it was very much in use. So before we dared get in the bed, we sprayed the mattresses on top, and we finally got rid of all the varmints, I'd say. Turned them over, and lo and behold, the bottom of the mattress is just as bad, so we took care of that anyhow. We didn't get any patients for a while there because we were so newly established. And while I had gone, I was still in France to Bar-le-Duc. Bob had been sent up to Antwerp, Belgium. He was, oh dear, I lost my thought.
Stopping the tape.
He was part of an anti-aircraft artillery gang, and what they were doing was shooting down buzz bombs you all heard of, I'm sure, for German planes as they came over. So they were rather a busy outfit too. He was, as I mentioned, I believe, in Antwerp, Belgium. I told you already how dirty that place was, but it was nice in a way. We were, I've mentioned this too, the closest hospital to the German lines at this point. Things were really quite unexciting there. We started getting some patients back from the front, so that kept us a little bit busy. But the thing that got us the most, I think, was Christmas Eve of 1944. Kitty and I had been up in our office. We were making little snowmen out of basically cotton, and I'm not sure what we used for eyes and mouth and that type of thing, but these were to be little things to put on the patient's trays that Christmas Day. And this was a time of the Battle of the Bulge, too. Well, the only really exciting thing that happened there, Kitty and I were coming back to our quarters that Christmas Eve of 44, and this plane came roaring down the roadway between our quarters and the main building, shooting all the way. Well, I kind of tackled Kitty, and we both fell into the shrubs, so we were safe. But it was sort of interesting to learn a little later that this German plane had been piloted by a female pilot and had been shot down not too many miles ahead of us. Well, then, much to my my pleasure and surprise, Bob showed up, despite the Battle of the Bulge going on. And as usual, with Corporal Smith, the driver of the Jeep, and Bob's own Jeep with him as a passenger. So he came up, and we really felt we'd like very much to get married. Well, there's quite a waiting period. I forget if it's about 3 months, as I recall, all kinds of red tape for 2 American citizens to get married. And one of the things we had to swear to was the fact that neither of us were married, which we weren't. And finally, we did get the permission, and we did wait, and we were married by the mayor of Bar-le-Duc, February the 7th, 1945. We had a nice wedding. The only problem was that the mayor, who did all the talking, was all in very, very rapid French, which we didn't understand. I'd had some French in both high school and college, but I still couldn't follow that at all. But we were lucky in that it was translated for us. I still do have that in a scrapbook that I own. While I was still in Bar-le-Duc, we were sent off. We had to leave. I had 5 days of leave. Bob had 7. And we had strict orders after we were married that we were to stay out of Paris. That was strictly off limits for us. And I think if you've heard enough of me by now, that's where we headed. But whoever went on a honeymoon with the driver, Corporal Smith, and the Jeep, and the 2 of us passengers in the back. So off we go. And we landed in the outskirts of Paris. We didn't know exactly where we were going. So we stopped a very nice-looking gentleman wearing a top hat and a cutaway coat, and in very poor French. Bob really didn't know French at all. He yelled at us, "Where is the Champs-Élysées?" He was yelling. So the man in perfect English told us just exactly where we were going, which helped.
We're stopping the tape.
So finally, on our honeymoon, and thanks to the Red Cross at the time, we were quartered in the penthouse suite of the Hotel Claridge on the Champs-Élysées. And you looked out the little balcony that was there to the right, and you could see the Arc de Triomphe right there, very visibly. And it was a beautiful, beautiful suite of rooms. The only problem was there was practically no hot water. We had about no food. The only thing they would supply us with were omelets. I guess eggs were plentiful, but nothing else much was. But this was a honeymoon, so we were very happy. Paris was pretty well blacked out, even still. Not very much to do. So at the part of sounding like a smarty, it was 9 months and 7 days later we had our first child. And we did quite a lot in Paris. That's true. I always hate to say that because people sit back and look at me. However, it's true. So anyway, I was pregnant about 3 months, I guess, and was shipped home by plane. And that plane was full of other women, it's all female as I recall now. And a lot of them were pregnant. Whether they were officially married or not, I don't know. But a lot of them were quite sick. And so good old Alice took her helmet off, walked up and down the aisle of the plane. I was healthy as a horse, I guess, and allowed the gals to do what they had to do in that helmet. That wasn't very nice. Anyhow, about halfway, 2/3 of the way, I believe, across the ocean, one of the engines, these were all 4-engine planes at the time, stalled. And so we limped in and landed in Nova Scotia. And there we did change planes, and I finally got home to New York. And believe me, milk, fresh milk, and green salads and things like that had never ever tasted so good because we simply hadn't had them when we were overseas at all. I had my first child, and Bob never got home until about 3 months later. What he'd done in the meantime, his outfit was stationed on the coast of Normandy, and they were guarding German prisoners there. And one of the German prisoners was quite an artist in his own right, and he spent his time doing oil paintings of some of the officers in the outfit. And interestingly enough, I think, this wonderful portrait he did of my husband was done with packing cases for the frame and potato sacking with the canvas. And I still have that portrait is quite large. It's on my living room wall, and it's one of my very best possessions, I can believe. Well, Bob got home, as I said. Chuck was just about 3 months old, and I met him at Grand Central Station, took him up to my house. He, of course, didn't know my parents, and I did not know his at all, so Bob was still wearing his combat clothes and great big high boots. So I told him very apologetically, after he picked up his baby and didn't quite know how to hold him, it was very awkward, that very apologetically I said, you know, I never told you, but that baby isn't really perfect. What do you mean, says he. So I took off the baby's little booties, and he had one dropped toe on his right foot. So Bob looked at me, and he grinned, he sat down, took off his combat boots, and sure enough, he had a dropped toe, same place on his foot. So he said, boy, I'll never be able to deny this is my baby. I said, that's for sure. So that was that. We all got along very well indeed. And after that, Bob insisted that we come back to Marion, Indiana to live because he was an only child. He really had no relatives. I had lots of relatives on the East Coast, and I was most reluctant to go, but I finally had to concede I would go. Meantime, Bob went home to his parents, of course, and he found a house for us, and that was on North F Street in Marion. And it was an older home, and it was nothing I particularly desired, I didn't think. But at the time, with all these GIs getting home from the war, housing was very much in demand, as I think you can understand. So we had a very happy time in that house, except the one time, this I imagine is several years later. We had a cherry tree in the backyard and an old, very dilapidated garage, and we wanted to build a new one. But if we'd had a 2-car garage, which was what Bob wanted, we'd had to cut down the cherry tree, and neither one of us wanted to do that. So we left the cherry tree, built the 1-car garage, and you know what happened. We had a terrible storm right after that. Garage was finished, and down with the cherry tree, so you could have had the 2-car garage after all. Well, this is really about the end of my experience with the Army and what happened to me. A lot of people came home with wounds. They came home with happy or unhappy memories. My memory, of course, my best memory, was a very happy one because this is how I met my husband, and we lived very happily together for many, many years later. That's the end.
Okay, we're stopping the tape. The interview is now over.